Hello. Uh, Today I would like to share with you, I would like to introduce you to my final year computer science project that I developed using Python. And in this project, I help connect phones that look like this, that have a button keypad interface and are usually not internet capable, and I enable them to communicate with ChatGPT. Now, the way I do this is by exploiting the inbuilt SMS interface in these phones on the client end, and at the server end, I am utilizing desktop automation to carry out the requests received by SMS. And I'm doing this using the PyAuto GUI module for desktop automation in Python. And I would like to show you a demonstration of how this project works. Now, before moving on to the tutorial, and before I show you how exactly you can produce this automation script and the various technologies and methodologies of coding that are required, let us have a small look at the flow diagram of what is actually happening in the project. Now, on my right, you can see the flow diagram, and it all starts out with the SMS interface, which is pretty much prevalent in all feature phones, mostly all feature phones. And this inbuilt SMS interface is crucial for the user of the feature phone to write to text prompts to ChatGPT and also to receive them. So this inbuilt SMS interface is leveraged in my project. I am also using existing basic mobile networks, which can be used to send and receive SMS messages. And the mobile networks could belong to any service provider, network service provider. And at the receiving end, we have another phone number, another designated phone number. And this other SIM is going to be connected to the laptop using a client, a web application client. In my project, I'm using Google Messages. So Google Messages provides a web application that allows you to see, read and send responses to SMS messages from your laptop, provided you have a SIM and a number on your phone, on your personal mobile phone. So this is my server-side SMS application, and I'm utilizing, of course, ChatGPT, which is the showstopper of this entire project, and on which the entire project depends and is trying to make accessible to users of feature phones. And I am also using my browser. In this case, I'm using Microsoft Edge to access ChatGPT, and all of the automation script is being written using Python and using the PyAuto GUI module that allows you to automate mouse and keyboard operations. So it would appear, if you were to see the automation, it would appear as if a human being is operating uh, the computer, but in reality, it's all automated. So PyAuto GUI makes this um, happen. It makes it possible. I would like to show you a demonstration of how this project works, followed by a tutorial on how you could perhaps do the same. Now I would like to show you a short demonstration of how this project works and how exactly are we able to connect these feature phones to ChatGPT using SMS. So I would head on to the inbuilt SMS application and type in a custom message. Let's say let's say that there are two friends in a village or perhaps an environment where there's limited internet outreach and people are accustomed to using feature phones due to affordability issues, and one of the friends faints, and since perhaps the doctor only comes on the weekends and there is no hospital or something like that, they would type in two words, faint space help, followed by a question mark, and send it over to the designated phone number associated with the project. So, right there, the SMS has been sent to the server. Now, during this phase, the server is receiving the SMS, carrying out the request, and in a while we will receive our response, which will be a typical ChatGPT response. So as you can see, we have received a message in our inbox, and this is a reply from the server. And let's read the contents. It says ensure good ventilation, lie flat, elevate legs, loosen tight clothing, and seek medical aid promptly. So, as you can see, using the SMS interface on this phone and an automation script uh, on my laptop, which I've designed using Python, I've effectively connected ChatGPT to these phones. And an interesting thing to note is that I have done this without using the OpenAI API that they provide, and I basically worked around the need to use the API. Now let's have a look at what's going on at the server side of things. So let's begin our tutorial. And the first thing that we need to do is to gather the prerequisite software tools and ensure that they're installed correctly on both our mobile devices and the laptop. So the first prerequisite that we would be dealing with is Google Messages. And on your mobile device, you would be wanting to download Google Messages from the Play Store and make it the default SMS application in your mobile device. The reason you need to make it your default SMS device is so that you can read and send SMS messages through Google Messages application on your mobile device. Once that's done, you can head to your laptop and using the browser of your choice, go to Google Messages, and you can use whichever browser you want, be that Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, or even Microsoft Edge. I'm using Microsoft Edge. And when you go ahead and open Google Messages web application on your computer, you would get a screen that looks like this, containing a QR code. So you would have to head on to your mobile device and open up Google Messages. And on the top right corner, you would see your profile photo. So tap on your profile photo and you would get a short menu, and you would want to select device pairing. And you can go ahead and tap on QR code scanner and scan the QR code. Once that's done, you should be able to see the messages on your browser screen, your SMS messages, and you most probably would get a prompt that would ask you whether you would want to remember this computer, and ideally you would want to be clicking on yes, because the automation script will continuously open the browser and you would not want to log in again and again. So after you're done with this, you can head on the three buttons on the top and click on settings and ensure that data use message is turned to off. And what this option basically does is that if it's on, it keeps prompting warning messages in case you're using your mobile data. Let's say you're using a hotspot or extending the use of your mobile data plan to your laptop, it would keep giving you warning messages about you using your mobile data. So you would want that to be turned off so that it does not hinder the seamlessness of our automation script. And with that, we end up with setting our Google Messages. So once we are done setting up Google Messages, the next thing we need to do is to set up an environment where we can type in and execute our automation script that we're going to write using Python. So in order to write our Python script, we need to download or have an integrated development environment. Now I prefer to use VS Code because I find it convenient to use, but you could use any IDE of your choice. Now, in case you do not have an IDE installed and Python set up with it, you need to have Python language set up with your IDE. In case you do not have that done, there are lots of tutorials available online on how you can download VS Code for Windows and have Python set up with it. It's a fairly simple and straightforward process, but I can also brush you through the process of downloading VS Code and having Python set up with it. All you have to do is go to your browser and type VS Code download. Then you can see the link from visualstudio.com, usually the first link, and you want to go ahead and download the installer for Windows. Once you click on this button, it would trigger the installation of the installer, the progress of which you can see in your progress bar either on the top or the bottom of your screen. Once that's done, you can go ahead and execute the installation wizard and follow the steps of the installation. It's a fairly simple and straightforward process. Once you're done downloading VS Code, you want to head forward to download Python and get Python running with VS Code. So for that, you would also need to go to your browser and type in Python. And you would want to head over to the official site of Python, which is also usually the first link to pop up. Hover your mouse over the download section and click on this button right here, the latest version of Python, at the time of making this video is 3.12.3, but you can go ahead and download whatever is the latest version when you are seeing this video. So when you click this button, it would also download an installer, and once the installation is complete, you would want to go ahead and execute the installer by opening that file and running it. And one important thing to keep in mind is that while installing Python on your system, you need to select the checkbox that says copy to path. Otherwise, you could simply continue with the installation wizard by clicking next. Once you're done installing Python into your system, the next thing you need to do is to get Python to run with VS Code. So you can go ahead and open your newly installed VS Code that you can find by typing into the search bar of your Windows Start button. I have it pinned to my taskbar. Now, if you're opening VS Code for the first time, you would probably see a button here that says Open Folder. So that is for basically selecting any folder from your file explorer that you want to use, where all your programs that you type in are going to reside in. So once you have a folder opened, you can head over to this icon on the left next to the name of your folder. Click on it. This is to open a new file. You can then type in the name of your file followed by .py. The .py is the extension for Python programs, and once you're done writing the file name, you can press enter. So as you can see, we are ready to edit our new file. But before we do so, we want to head to the extensions button on the left side of the screen and go ahead and click on it and type Python in the search bar. You can go ahead and click on the very first option that appears. Now I've already downloaded the Python extension, as you can see, but you can go ahead and download the Python extension from Microsoft or VS Code. Once that's done downloading, we are done with setting up Python in VS Code. And to test whether our setup is done properly, we can execute a small print statement. Print is usually used to display text onto the terminal or onto the screen of the computer using Python. Now, whenever you type anything into the VS Code editor, you would see a small white circle coming on here, which is basically indicating that there are certain changes that you still have to save. So in order to save your program, you can go ahead and press Ctrl plus S, and that saves our program. Then head over to the top right of the screen. This small play button is what you have to click in order to execute your Python program. And the terminal appears with the statement executed and displayed. So that means Python is running all right and has been integrated properly with our IDE, that is VS Code. So now that we have gotten VS Code and Python installed and running, the next thing we need to do for this project is to install PyAutoGUI. Now that is also a fairly straightforward process. All you have to do is press the Windows and R button on your keyboard. The run command is going to open up and you need to type in CMD for command prompt and go ahead and click OK or press enter. Now when your command prompt opens up, you want to be typing pip install PyAutoGUI and click enter. Now I already have it installed, but you can go ahead and install it for yourself. So once that's done, we should successfully have installed PyAutoGUI in our system so that it's working properly. So we're going to open VS Code again, and the program that we were just editing a few seconds or minutes ago, we're going to now import PyAutoGUI using the import keyword, and then go ahead and execute the position function. Now the position function helps us to know the coordinates of our cursor, our mouse, at the time of execution. So when I click this run code button here, it should give me the X and Y coordinates of my mouse. So as you can see here, I've been given the X and Y coordinates of my mouse for that particular position, and that indicates that PyAutoGUI is running all right. So once we're done checking whether PyAutoGUI is working or not with the position function, let's dig into creating our automation script. Now the automation script that we're about to make, when we run the script, the first thing that needs to happen is that our browser needs to open. So over here I'm using Microsoft Edge, and although we might be tempted to automate the movement of our mouse, which is very much possible using PyAutoGUI functions, it provides you the necessary tools to automate the movement of your mouse and simulate the clicking of a mouse. While creating automation scripts, it is always more better to automate keyboard shortcuts instead of using the mouse automation, and this is because it gives you more accurate results the greater number of times. So in order to do that, uh, so just to get things clear, we now need to open our browser. That's the first thing we need to do before we log into Google Messages, and then the rest of the thing goes on. So my browser is the second icon from the left in on my Windows taskbar, and there's a shortcut. If you press Windows plus 2, where 2 stands for the icon from the left, it will open that specific application. So depending on where your browser is on the taskbar, you would then have to, let's first of all create a function and call it open edge. You can call it whatever you want, but this function will basically open the browser. The job of this function is only to open the browser. So as we just discussed right now, we're going to be carrying out the shortcut Windows plus 2 using the function called hotkey, which is a part of the PyAutoGUI module. It allows you to carry out keyboard shortcuts, and in this case we're trying to open the browser. So if I go ahead and try to execute this program, of course we need to call our function as well and save it. And as you see right here, our browser has just been opened. So what's important over here is that although this may seem like a very trivial task, there are a few things to keep in mind. When you open the browser, depending on your internet connection, it the loading process could take an uncertain amount of time. Now, if your browser internet connection is very good and you're very certain of the time that it's going to take to open, you need not worry about the loading process. But the problem is that if you want your automation script to be more reliable, we need to take care of the tendency of the browser to open at different durations depending on the quality of the internet connection and the availability of the respective web servers. So, in order to fix this little problem here, there are certain things that we need to notice. So, when I open my browser here, it and Google is my home page. So, and I'm assuming that most of the people who use browsers, for them, Google is their home page. If you notice what happens here, the control immediately goes to the search bar of Google. Have a look at this again. When I click on the browser, the control directly goes to the search bar of Google. So I can exploit this little observation to know when Google has finally loaded and when the next part of the automation script can be made to run. So the way I do this is, so in my automation script, I'm going to try and type in some text, let's say loaded. It's just a piece of random text. I'm going to write it using PyAutoGUI. And then once I've finished writing it, I'm going to select it, copy it, and check the value in my clipboard. So the clipboard is basically the place where text that you copy is temporarily kept. So if Google is loaded, we should be able to successfully write loaded over here, and it should be available on the clipboard, if you know what I mean. If the browser is still loading, then there would be no place to keep this, and so the clipboard would be virtually empty. So this may sound a bit hazy or seem a bit hazy for now, but you may get the idea if you look at the code that's going to follow in our open edge function. So we basically want to construct a loop that when the action for opening the browser is prompted using hotkey Windows plus 2, we want to continuously inject the text loaded and check whether that is copied into our clipboard. Now the way we're going to do this is while loaded in so loader is some random variable that I'm assigning here or specifying here, which the purpose of which you will come to know in a while. So if you're interested in entering some text, there's a function called write in PyAutoGUI. So we want to write it, and then we want to select. So again, you're going to use the hotkey for using the keyboard shortcut Control A. Then we want to go ahead and copy it into our clipboard. So that's done using Control and C. And in the end, we want to have it inside our variable loader, and we do this using a library or a module called Piperclip. So Piperclip is a special module in Python that allows you to access the contents of your clipboard, and it's not imported yet. So what you can do is go ahead into your run dialog, put in cmd, and you can go ahead and pip install paperclip. Now, as you can see in my computer, the requirement is already satisfied, but you can go ahead and follow the installation process here. Once that's done, all you have to do is import paperclip, and the little error that we were seeing here should go away. Now, what we're doing in this little loop here is that we are continuously injecting the text loaded and selecting it, copying it into a clipboard, putting it into a variable using paperclip.paste, and checking uh, whether loaded is okay. There's a bit of an error here. I think it should be while loaded is not in loader. So then we can set, let's make a global variable loader and keep it blank for now. So when we create global variables, we need to specify within the scope of the function that the given variable is the global one we are trying to refer to. So this loader variable for now has an empty string, and as long as this is not in this, we're going to continue the process of injecting loaded and then checking whether um, it is copied into a clipboard or not. Now, one more thing to keep in mind when we're carrying out desktop automation is that we need to keep a few delays in between the things, the various calls and the various actions, because if I am to execute the script right now, the way computers work, these functions are going to very consequently or successively execute very spontaneously. And because loading applications on the computer and carrying out actions on them actually takes some time, this code is actually going to falter in many places because of the spontaneity of this code. So you can go ahead and import a library or a module called time, and there's a function called time.sleep. You must have, if you're familiar with Python, you might know about what I'm this function. So you can set that to, let's say, half a second in between various places depending on where you see certain bugs occur. So now what we have to do is open Google Messages once we're done opening our browser. So to do that, or to realize what we need to do now, let's go to our browser. And so what we basically want to do is that once the Google homepage is done loading, we want to go to the address bar and type in the URL for Google Messages. So in order to go to your address bar, you need to press Alt and D, the keyboard shortcut Alt plus D. And once you're done with that, you can go ahead and put in the URL of Google Messages, which is messages.google.com. So just to confirm, you can go to Google Messages and click on this link right here, and you will see the URL of Google Messages right here. And do ensure that you are logged into your Google Messages, and your phone and your desktop web application for Google Messages is linked, because this is
crucial for the automation script to run seamlessly. So you can go ahead and copy this URL, and we are essentially going to write write this URL into the address bar. And once Google Messages opens up, we need to do the same thing we did for the browser. We need a way to know that Google Messages has successfully opened. So in order to do that, unlike last time, we do not need to write any loaded text. What we need to do is identify some text that is characteristic of the page being loaded up. So to help identify this, let's Control A everything and then Control C to copy it, and then go to WordPad and paste it right there. Now, if you have a look here, conversations list, we can exploit this piece of text to know whether Google Messages has loaded or not, and appropriately carry on with the automation script. So that is the theoretical part of it. Let's go ahead and create the program or the function that does that. So let's define a function called open messages and do what we just discussed. So the first thing we need to do is uh, shift the control of the cursor to the address bar, and to do that we have Alt and D. Once we're done doing that, we want to write the URL of right here. We want to write the URL of Google Messages, and after that we want to enter, because remember we are typing this into an address bar, so we need to, so if you just want to process one keyboard key, you use the function press. We were using hotkey when we needed two keys at the same time, but in case you just want one key, you use the function press from PyAutoGUI. So these three lines should effectively launch me into Google Messages, and as usual, let's have a few delays to ensure that we do not create any scope of untoward happenings over here. Just add a little bit of a delay, an extra delay here as well. So the delays are something that need to be customized by you on your system depending on how fast or slow your internet connection is. So let's go ahead and execute that. So as you can see, the browser has loaded, and okay, let's see what went wrong. Okay, so very importantly, I keep missing this. When we create a function, we have to call it. So let's see whether that executes all right. So as you can see, we have successfully opened Google Messages, and just like before, we need to have a mechanism to know for certain that Google Messages has really loaded up. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing while conversations not in loader. We'll be using the same variable this time as well. PyAutoGUI dot hotkey control and A. We want to select and then copy what we just selected right here and inject it into our variable, and then we want to check whether conversations is on the screen or not. If it is, then it's successfully loaded. Now one thing to keep in mind over here, so let's just add our global so that we can tell the interpreter that the loader we're using here is the global loader that we're referring to. Now another very important thing here is that once we're done using the loader variable, we need to reinitialize it to its default value, because in order to prevent bugs from taking place, and we also want to reset our clipboard. So you can choose, I usually use the text plump pillows because it's useful during debugging. When a certain error occurs in your automation script, keeping some kind of text on the surface of your clipboard helps you identify better what went wrong. So once you're done using your clipboard and your temporary variable, it's good to reinitialize them so that we don't have any bugs taking place here. So likewise, once I'm done here as well, I will try and do the same thing over here. So we need to reinitialize this with our chosen text. You can keep anything that you want, and as usual we'll probably keep a few delays in between according to your discretion. So as you can see over here, um, this should work. Let's have a look at the execution. So as you can see here, all of the text is selected, and we can only conjecture that it is detecting the successful loading of Google Messages, and we can only really come to know of that when we create the the subsequent part of the automation script. Now that we have successfully opened Google Messages with our automation script, the next part in our program is to detect when a new message comes in Google Messages. And so we need to train our automation script to look out for new messages in a specific part of the web page. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, let's just simulate the situation. So as you can see that let's assume that the automation script so far has opened Google Messages, and as you can see that the very first conversation here, we've got a new message. So there's some observations to be made here. Whenever a new message comes, it always comes on the top. So we can exploit this little observation and use it in our automation script. So we can train our automation script to actively detect the text from the latest conversation list. And the way we can do this is by selecting all of the text on our Google Messages web screen and use something called pattern matching in Python. Now, pattern matching is a very useful tool which can be used to recognize oh, certain patterns that recur in texts, so that we can capture certain text elements from uh, applic- familiar applications. For example, in this web page, there's a set structure of where each web element occurs and where the hierarchy of the text elements. So we can detect patterns to know where the latest message appears in this textual hierarchy. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, let me artificially simulate selecting and copying the text and paste it into WordPad so that it's more clear. Now, as you can clearly see that the text I have in front of me is the text that is copied from Google Messages. And as you can see, messages, conversations list, this is something that would recur each time Google Messages opens up. And then on the third line, I have my first contact name, that is of my latest message, followed by the text that they have sent. Now, this is extremely useful, and I can exploit this little occurrence by teaching the automation script to look out for certain things within a certain framework. So since I know that the first contact, the latest message is always going to pop out in the front. So it's always going to be after conversations list. So if I can, using pattern matching, teach my Python program that the text that follows, the line that follows uh, conversations list, and the line that follows that contains the question, then I can successfully extract the question, no matter how big or small. So this may sound not so clear at first, but you'll probably get an idea once we start writing the program part of it. So let's go and head back to our Python program in VS Code, and let's define another function called definition get question. So this part of our program is going to try and extract the new question. So the first thing that we did here was to select all of the text and then copy it. And after we did that, we wanted to carry out some pattern matching. So for pattern matching in Python, there is a specific module called RE. So the module RE, which stands for regular expressions, comes pre-installed with the standard Python installation package. So all you have to do is head on to your import section and import regular expressions. And the way regular expressions works is that we have to define two strings or two text variables. The first one would contain the pattern that we are looking for, and the second one would be the text in which we're trying to find that pattern. So let's first define the pattern, defining a variable called pattern, and we use the R prefix to let the interpreter know that we're defining a regular expression pattern. So as we had discussed, we are looking for the conversations list. The next line following that, and then the next line following that. So the line that follows conversation list would have the name of the contact, and the line that follows that would have the question that we're looking for. So, and then the line that follows that would be the demarcator when the question ends. And you just have a look here. So the next line, the immediate next line after conversations list is the latest contact's name. The very next line is the name of the question, followed by the very next line break is the demarcator, which signifies that the question has ended. So our piece of information is between the second and the third line break. And just to be on the safe side in pattern matching, this little bracket here symbolizes anything that we might have missed. Dot star basically means anything, any number of characters including nothing, could be between list and the new line. And then to cover the contact name, we are saying any number of characters, could be nothing as well, to cover the contact name, because the line following the contact name does not come directly. There's no direct line break here, because we have a contact name here, and that contact name could be anything. So to account for that, we use dot star question mark. Dot basically means a character. Star means, sorry, the star means zero or more of the left. So zero or more of uh, a single character. So it could be any number of characters, but then it has to be followed by a new line. And then after a new line, again, we're looking for any number of characters, including void. And it is this. So when we close something in parenthesis, it stands for a group. So we can individually target this group. So this is group 1, this is group 2, and this is group 3. We are interested in group 3 because group 3 contains our question. So that is the pattern. Now let's define another text variable called all text, where we would do nothing but paste the contents of our clipboard that we just copied here. And so that would be the the base text in which we're trying to find the pattern. So the pattern that we are going to find is going to be stored in a variable, let's say match, and the search function, the search method in the RE module, can be used to find the pattern within the base text. Now the characteristic of the search method is that it only finds the first search, the first occurrence of this pattern, and that's all that we really need here. So the first argument is going to be the pattern, followed by the where we are trying to find it in, and the third parameter basically means that in our pattern we also have to look for new lines. So re.all allows or enables us to use new lines in our pattern. So if there is a match, we want to define a new variable called question and store, as we discussed, the third group. So group is a method in the that belongs to the match object, and it can, depending on the number you specify, it can target the specific group. So a group is nothing but something within a parenthesis. So the third group is the group that we found out would have the question, and this third group is located within the entire pattern at some position. So we are targeting only that position. We're not interested in this part of the pattern for our question. We only want to extract this part of our pattern. So we would use something called group 3, match.group 3, and we would want to potentially um, get rid of additional spaces at the end, and also get rid of additional uh, new lines that may come along with the question in the end. So strip is basically a method, a standard method for strings in Python, that removes the excess white spaces in the end. And you can also, by default, if you don't specify a parameter, but on the third line here we have specified the new line, so we also want to remove any additional new lines if they exist. Now a very important thing to note here is that, and something that you may have thought of yourself, how do we know that whatever appears, whatever piece of text appears at the top is always a new question? What if it is not a new question? What if it is a response? Let me simulate something for you so that you understand what I'm saying. So uh, let's say that the response is snake bites are very dangerous. Now have a look at what happens here. So when I give a response, the text at the place that we are trying to target changes. So let's say that the automation script runs from here. It, the way we have programmed it, it would think that this is a new question as well, which it is not. So how do we train our automation script to know when it's a new question and when it is not, when it is a response? So in order to do that, we can use a small hack, and we can train our automation script to be sensitivized or receptive towards the question mark in the end. So one condition that we can keep is that only if the text over here ends with a question mark, then it is a new question. So if it does not end with a question mark, then the text will not be processed as a new question. So in order to replicate that programmatically, we would have to check if question, the string that we have, the last index. So -1 index in Python is used to target the very last character. It's a very useful tool. So we want to check whether that's a question mark. And if it is, then we can go ahead and define an arbitrary function call, which basically means that it can go and process that in ChatGPT. We will discuss how we're going to make this function later, but for now it's just an arbitrary call that if the question ends with a question mark, if the piece of text we just extracted ends with a question mark, then you can go ahead and call ChatGPT. Otherwise, do nothing, right? We don't want it to be treated as a question, and subsequently we don't want it to be injected into ChatGPT. Usual, we'd probably want to put some delays in between, so you can probably put again, this is according to your discretion to see where problems are occurring because of insufficient delays and stuff like that. Another important thing that you should know at this point is that when the automation script is executing and you want to escape the execution of the automation script, then what should you do? Now, let's say the automation script is running and your applications are opening by themselves and stuff is happening by itself, and suddenly you want to manually stop the execution. Now, in desktop automation, it is extremely important to stop an automation script if it's not doing what it is intended to do. If it starts manipulating things, not the right things, and changing things here and there, it needs to be stopped. So in PyAutoGUI, if you want to stop your automation script in between, you have to take your cursor to the far top right corner of the screen and keep it there for a good 5 seconds. So now that we've finished the part of the code that is supposed to extract the latest text as the question, let us go ahead and see whether it is actually printing the question. So this time we will not forget to call the specific function. Instead of ChatGPT over here, let's just print the question and see whether we get it successfully extracted or not. The browser and execute the program. So as you can clearly see, the question, the latest text, it detected the latest question and extracted the question successfully. As you can clearly see in the print statement in the terminal here. So a pattern matching program is working just as expected. So once we're done extracting the question, the next thing to do is to go to the actual part of the automation script that injects the question into ChatGPT. So we'll put our arbitrary function right there, and now move on to just one small thing that we need to do is to reset, as usual, reset our clipboard to our debugging default value, because we're done using the clipboard. And we're now going to move ahead to define a new function called ChatGPT. So let's simulate what's going on right now. We've just extracted our latest question, and what we need to do is, before opening a ChatGPT on another tab, we need to first select this chat. We need to move in and select this particular chat. We need to open it so that our control directly goes into the message box of the chat. And the reason we need to do this is so that when we are done doing the ChatGPT part and when we come back to this tab, all we have to do is inject the response from ChatGPT and press enter. The reason we want to do this right now and not anytime later is because if we move on into the latest chat after we go to ChatGPT, there's a possibility that a new question from another user, let's say, would steal the latest position. So we want to make sure that whoever's asked the question, the response is appropriately returned to them. So the moment we extract the question, we need to select that particular conversation. Now, how are we going to do that? We aren't going to be using our mouse. So if you press the tab, uh, if you press the tab key right here, just give me a second. So this is how Google Messages would ideally open up when we were first opening it. So if I were to move into this, I would press tab 1, 2, 3 times, right? So again, why am I not automating the movement of my mouse? Because using keyboard shortcuts in the longer run is more reliable in automation scripts, because the movement of your mouse is specific to your particular resolution. And if tomorrow you were to, let's say, export this script to a computer with a larger or smaller resolution, your mouse would probably not go and select what you're trying to select, because mouse works on the basis of coordinates. You can only move them on the basis of coordinates. So when you're on the web, you can replace the need to use a mouse with your tab and shift tab. So tab is used to move forwards, and if you press shift tab, it will move backwards. So we need to press shift 1, 2, 3 times to move the control to the latest chat, and we need to press enter. So let's go ahead and move into our program here. So the moment we move into ChatGPT, what we need to do is we need to press tab 3 times. Now, if you're familiar with Python, you would be probably knowing something called for loops. And instead of doing press tab 3 times, like press tab, press tab, press tab, I could just run a loop from 0 to 3 and do the necessary action of pressing the tab. And after we're done with that, we need to press enter. Now let's see whether this works or not. This little bit of automation code that we have here works or not. So you can clearly see that once it extracts the latest question, it moves ahead and brings the control to the latest chat's message box, exactly how we intended to curate it. So let us go back to the program and note that if this does not work or it stalls somewhere, you again have to try and manipulate uh, the delays and experiment with the various positions of the delays to see where the automation script is rushing forward, when in reality it should wait for some time. You need to find that out depending on your internet connection and the speed of everything. So once we go ahead and do that, there's another word of caution here. If you go into the ChatGPT method, it's always a good practice to, through my personal experience, to also sort of ensure that we are going to the topmost chat. Now, up stands for the up arrow key. So when we press tab thrice, we move to the conversations list, the various contacts. And by pressing the up button 3 times, we ensure that we climb up to the latest chat. Because with my experience, sometimes pressing 3 tabs is not enough to get it to the topmost. Sometimes it moves to the second or the third contact for some reason. So this little thing over here should ensure that it always moves to the top and then enters into the top. So we can just ensure whether this is running all right as well. And it isn't. So again, there's probably a problem with the delays somewhere, and there's a requirement perhaps to put a little bit of a delay in some places. This is what it takes to make an automation script work. And yeah, so it works perfectly. And once we're done with that, once we're done with moving the control to the latest contact, we can now go ahead and open a new tab. So to open a new tab, why do we need to open a new tab? So that we can open ChatGPT. So the shortcut to open a new tab is Control plus T. And again, that could have a little bit of a delay to process that. Again, a little bit of a delay. And now we again want to move our attention to the address bar, for which we already are familiar with the shortcut. And this time we would want to type in the URL for ChatGPT and press enter. With a bit of delay in between. Once we're done with that, we could wait for some time, perhaps 5 seconds, and you want to be ensuring that you're logged into ChatGPT with your account, irrespective. Either you can use a Google account or some other kind of an email account. So let's just simulate that. We're gonna go to ChatGPT and see how the UI presents itself. So I think we got the URL all right. And as you can see, when ChatGPT opens, it the control directly moves on into the search bar of the message box. And this is exactly what we need. So all we have to do is wait for some time and then directly inject our question into here, press enter. Then we would see what we need to do after that. So let's move on and wait for about 5 seconds for ChatGPT to load up. Then we would want to um, write our question. And you could, okay, so question is a local variable here. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a global variable so that it's accessible to all the functions that use it, because we're trying to maintain a common copy of the question variable. So I think that should sort it out. So what we need to do is you can write whatever you want. For example, you know, answer in one paragraph only. So any additional constraints or requirements or specifications can be concatenated with the original query using string concatenation in Python. And once we do that, we would go ahead and put a little bit of a delay and enter that into ChatGPT. Once you're done with that, we now need to wait for ChatGPT to respond. So let's just see whether our program is running all right till here. Okay, so I did not save it. It needs to be saved and then executed. So I think we are having a recurring problem with it not being able to get onto this part, and the reason this is probably happening is because it's not a sufficient um, delay from this part when it finds conversations and when it actually ends up loading. So probably have to add a little more of a delay to ensure that it's running all right. Maybe just 2.5 should be all right. Yeah. It's now in ChatGPT and we have injected our query along with the constraint. Now, from here on, the automation script takes a very interesting shape. So, how do you know when ChatGPT is done giving its response? Now, a very trivial solution to this is to wait, let's say, time.sleep for some time and then copy it. But as you know that ChatGPT, its own server could take a lot of time. It's not guaranteed to work only according to your internet speed. It also has its own, busy servers, and depending on that, it could take an uncertain amount of time. So if you notice something that you need to notice something about ChatGPT's the website's behavior when it's responding, because we need to know somehow using some clues in the website when the response is going to stop, because as you know it sort of has this typewriter effect. So how do we know? So let me just so if you notice when I ask a question, um, it moves like a typewriter. So it becomes challenging to know when you have to copy and extract the text. Now if you move on to a new chat, and I would like to show you something that I have observed from ChatGPT's UI is that when you go to a new chat, it immediately says new chat, and then when it's done, the title of the chat is going to change just when it's about to finish. Now have a look at that. Did you see that happen? So when ChatGPT is about to finish its response, it changes the text from new chat to something else. So can we exploit this, let's say, with the continuously occurring loop? that uses pattern matching to detect the text over here. If you're able to identify the structure and identify the text that is stored here, and detect when it changes from new chat to whatever it needs to change to. So to make it easy, we can say, when does new chat disappear? Whenever new chat disappears, that is our cue to go ahead and extract our text. So before we go ahead and do that, let us first see where can we, what is the structure of the ChatGPT website. So Control AC, go to your WordPad and paste it there. So as you can see, this is the chat history. ChatGPT comes twice, explore GPTs, then today, and then you have your the name of your chat. So the names of your chats are enclosed between today and upgrade plan, right? Today and upgrade plan are the two markers, the permanent markers that you can use in pattern matching to extract uh, the text that we need. So we can run a while loop and we can keep checking when new chat disappears from this specific area between today and upgrade plan. When it changes, then I know that the response is done, and then I can go ahead and try and copy it. Now, in order to copy the response from ChatGPT, you can clearly see that moving a little lower into the structure of the copy text, you can see that we have user followed by the question followed by ChatGPT followed by the response, and then you have message ChatGPT. So between user ChatGPT and message ChatGPT, we have our entire response. So we can use that using pattern matching to extract that specific part as the answer to our query that we injected into the UI of ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and materialize that into our program. So moving on into the next part of our ChatGPT function is, let us first define the two patterns. So pattern 1 can be, as we said, today followed by something, anything, and is immediately followed by upgrade plan, right? And this group 1, this group that we have between the parentheses, consists of the place that we want to detect the absence of new chat to know when ChatGPT is done with the response. Let's define pattern 2 as between, as we discussed, yeah, so um, between ChatGPT, so we have user, then ChatGPT again, and then message ChatGPT. So I'm not really good in framing pattern matching expressions, but you could probably do a better job than me. So we have ChatGPT over here, followed by some text, followed by um, user, followed by some text, and then definitively followed by a question mark. So I'm using an escape character to target the character question mark, because the question will always end with the question mark. That is something that we know for sure. So that can be, you know, that can assist Python in better recognizing the pattern we are trying to look for, followed by um,
And following that, just for safety sakes, we can have another dot star question mark. So after that, again we have chat GPT, and then following that is the most critical part where we have our, so if you have a look here, we have chat GPT followed by something user, followed by something question mark is definitely there, followed by something, followed by chat GPT, followed by our answer, followed by message chat GPT. So you could frame the regular expression pattern in a much more convenient way. I'm pretty sure there's a more convenient and more succinct way of doing it, but you can go ahead and carry that out. But this works out for me just as well. So this is the group we are interested in. This is what contains our answer. So now that we have both of our patterns ready, let's go ahead and create the code that detects when ChatGPT is done. So what we've done so far is we've injected the query into ChatGPT and now we're waiting. So we need to know how much we've got to wait. So let's go ahead and um, copy the entire selected text of the website. And once we're done with that, we want to have all text where we paste it and then find the match using re.search. We want to pattern match the first pattern with all text and having sensitivity towards new lines as well. And we want to see whether uh, new chat is not, if new chat is not in match.group 1. Why group 1? Because we have only one group and this is what we're targeting here. If new chat is not in group 1, we can stop this recurring infinite loop of finding out when the response is going to end. And if it's not in that, then we can go ahead. So that means if it's not in that, it means the response is done. So what do we need to do? We need to again copy and extract it. So let's go ahead and wait for some time just to be sure that ChatGPT is truly done. And we can go ahead and again carry out the copying, because we just want to make sure that we don't leave out anything, last minute, last second delays here and there. So we're going to do that again. And inject it into all text again. So this all text will now contain the entire website's text along with the finished ChatGPT's response. So we can go ahead and break out of that infinity loop, because this is essentially an infinity loop, so we have to break out of it. And we can go ahead and now we need to search for the second pattern. So what we're going to do is find out where we have again use re.search to find out where it is in all text. And so we can go ahead and copy that into our clipboard. So it is the fourth group we are interested in right here, 1 2 3 4, and we want to strip that of all its spaces and very importantly the question marks.
Sometimes ChatGPT asks, uh, is this conversation helpful so far? Question mark. And that response is particularly dangerous in our setup because then it would end up treating the response as a question in the next recurrence of the automation script. Because the question mark in the end is what we are being receptive about to detect new questions. So we cannot let it end with a question mark. So we can go ahead and copy that into our clipboard, maybe have a little bit of a delay here. Now that we're done with ChatGPT, we might as well just close. So to close a tab, we have Control and W, and to paste. See, so when you control the tab, it's going to go back to the message box of our contact that we had opened before we had opened ChatGPT. So all we have to do is paste it there, and I think that should seal the deal, except all we need is a little bit of an enter to push that through to the other side as an SMS message. So once that's done, I think we should be done with our ChatGPT part of the equation. And now what's important is we want our automation script to continuously run. We don't want it to, because what's happening right now is we have a one-time execution of the function calls, and this is not what we want. We want our automation script to be recurring, and we want it to be activated every time it detects a new message. That when a new messages come, we want the automation script to get activated. So the first time we run the script, my browser has to open once, Google Messages has to open once, and an infinite loop has to recur where when we get the question, if if it ends up opening ChatGPT and carrying out the request, we need to reload Google Messages to get the control back the way it was when we started our automation script, if you know what I mean. Had if there was no qualification of it as a new message, we can just continue the loop of detecting the new message. But if it went to ChatGPT and carried out the request and extracted the response and got it back, we need to get the automation script back to square one. So to do that, we need to open messages again. So in order to detect if it's gone to ChatGPT or not, we need to maintain a flag variable. So flags help us um, identify, so we can keep this as 0. And in get question, when it goes into ChatGPT, you can have um, flag set to 1 since we are in ChatGPT now. And then we can have a condition here that says if flag is equal to 1, if it went to ChatGPT, then open messages again and call, and then make flag 0 again, because now the deal is sealed. We've used the flags variable. Now we can set it back, and it's going to open messages again and then again. So what's actually happening is when I run the script, it's going to open my browser, open Google Messages, then it's going to search for the next question. If it's a new question, if it goes to ChatGPT and does all of that stuff and finishes doing that, we need to again reload messages to get it back to its square one state. So again, we need to reload open messages. Then again, it can go on to get the question over and over again. So before we go ahead and execute our program that we have just curated over here, um, just make a minor change. The new chat text actually has a small c on the second word. So if we go ahead and execute this code, now we can see that even though the answer is done, it's not copying it because the flow, the control is still inside the message box. And in order to scrape or copy the text inside the website, the control needs to move from the message box to the rest of the site. So in our code, we have to make a small modification. Once we're done pressing enter, we would need to ideally give a little um, half a second should be fine, and then shift the focus to one tab should be enough to get the focus out of the message box so that we can now select and copy the rest of the text. So go ahead and save that and now run it again. So the message has been copied, ChatGPT has been opened, the message has been injected, it has been scraped and stripped and sent back. So I should get a response on my phone, and if you just heard that, that is my feature phone right here that has received the SMS, which is a typical ChatGPT response. So if you or someone you're with has been bitten by a snake, it's crucial to seek medical help immediately. Immobilize the limb, keep it below heart level, and important instructions to a phone that cannot even traditionally connect to the internet. So this was the tutorial to connect button phones or basic phones or feature phones to ChatGPT without using the internet and using the Python programming language along with automation, the PyAutoGUI module that enables desktop automation, to use basic SMS to send and receive um, ChatGPT queries and responses. So I hope you enjoyed my project, and one thing to remember is that if something is not working out somewhere in the program, then it's probably because you have to manipulate the time, the delays, and see where things are lagging or rushing here and there. Now, in this particular application, we have tried to bring ChatGPT to feature phones, but you can go ahead and bring a variety of other internet services to the internet. For example, you can get the Google Maps text-based navigation as SMS messages to the feature phones given to and from um, as a text, and you can then get the text-based navigation instructions from Google Maps. You can design, manipulate this code and curate it for Google Maps, or you can get bus routes. You can even make this a text to voice and voice to text. Instead of having like an SMS, you can directly have a phone call that can convert the text of ChatGPT to voice, and then voice to text, which could probably be a more handy tool for people who live in the rural parts of the developing world. And the sky's the limit as far as SMS automation is concerned. You can bring pretty much any service to feature phones or any device that can send or receive SMS messages. So if you're facing any problems, this particular code will be in the repository, my GitHub repository, the link for which I will be putting in the description below. And if you liked this video, then you can go ahead and like it. But if you disliked the video, you can also go ahead and dislike it. And thank you for watching this video, and hopefully I will see you again.